All right, so our next topic that we're going to get into to close out um, this initial section of kind of the back of house operations information is inventory. And we're going to kind of analyze our inventory, look at some food costing and inventory turnover and all of that. Um, we've gone through and we've got our menus. We've got standardized recipes for all of our menu items. We've learned how to go through looking at our vendors' products, pick the right products for our recipes. We know how to requisition those to tell our purchasing agent, which products we need to purchase to have all of our inventory to make all of our menu items. Once we requisition for them, we've got them in food costing sheets or recipe costing sheets. Pardon me. So we've got our recipes costed out. We know how much each one of our recipes costs us, so we can figure out that total plate cost. So we know that our steak and asparagus and mashed potatoes cost us $9 to make this plate, and so we can determine our menu price based upon that. So we've got our recipe costing piece, which is key to setting those menu prices, and it also helps us with some sort of analysis. The next part is we have to keep up on inventory, not only to make sure that we order enough products to make sure that we keep products on hand, but also we do our inventory so it helps us with food costing. In a perfect world, let's say our menu had 3 items. We had a cheeseburger, a chicken sandwich, and a veggie sandwich. In a perfect world, we could go and look and say, oh, okay, this week I sold 100 burgers and they cost me $1 each to prepare. Then I sold 50 chicken sandwiches and they cost me $2 each to prepare. So now I'm at $200 in food costs. Plus I sold 50 veggie sandwiches and they each cost $1. So I've got $250 in food cost, and that's my food cost for this week. In a perfect world, that would be that could happen in a perfect world, but unfortunately, we're going to have a little bit of waste in the kitchen. We may thaw out too much hamburger for the week, and so we've got our burger patties, but some of it spoils before we can actually sell it, and so we have to throw some of that product away. Sometime maybe our server rang in a chicken sandwich instead of a veggie sandwich, and so we've made this chicken sandwich, but the customer actually wanted a veggie sandwich, so we have to make a veggie sandwich for the customer. Now we've wasted this chicken sandwich. So we're going to incur some waste, some spoilage, some waste just due to, if we're chopping peppers and onions and all of that, that's why we go and figure out EP and AP, so that we can try to accommodate for some of that waste. But we're going to waste a little bit of product, whether it's through processing, through spoilage. Then there's going to be some internal errors, some customer errors, where our server rings an order in wrong, and so it gets prepared wrong in the kitchen, or if we are really, really busy and the guy keeps putting the grill person keeps putting burgers and chickens and stuff on, and we may actually double, make an order twice, and so we've doubled it up. Well, now we're wasting some products. Employee meals will kind of come into there, so we unfortunately we don't sell 100% of the food that we actually purchase, and so that's why we have to use our inventory to actually determine what our food costs are. So we have two different inventory systems. We have a physical inventory and we have perpetual inventory. The physical inventory, that's the one that we're really concerned with to help us figure out what products we need to order, and also to determine what our value of inventory is, and determine what our food costs are for a certain period. So with the physical inventory, we count everything. So we go through, we start in dry storage, and we count everything. We count all the ketchups. We count all the canned goods, everything in our paper goods, our to-go silverware, to-go boxes, all of that stuff we count. We go in our cooler, we count all the veggies, we count all the all the proteins. We go in the freezer, we count all our frozen stuff. We go in the beer cooler, we count all of our beers. We go in the liquor closet, we count all of our liquors. I mean, we physically count everything. We even go to we go to our server side stations and we count all the bottles of ketchup or all the A1 bottles or whatever kind of stuff we have at our server station. So we count all of our products. Well, with our physical inventory. And we do that on some sort of set schedule or set period. So every Monday morning we do inventory, or every other Monday morning. Really, it's going to be best for you to do it once a week so that you can, if not a couple times a week, because we're going to order food at least once a week. For most operations, some may not get an order every single week, but for the most part, your operation's you're gonna order and get products in at least once a week, if not 2 to 3 times per week. So we want to make sure that we have that set schedule. So every Monday morning we do inventory. The reason we want to keep it a set schedule is it helps us with our, for one, it helps us to keep on a schedule and helps us with food costing so that we're not, so that our period of time doesn't change. So we have 5 days one period and then 12 days the next. I mean, we want to keep 7 days, or we want to do it every 3 days, or, we do it on Mondays and we do it again on Thursdays. But for the most part, you're going to see once a week when we do a full inventory. Perpetual inventory is kind of a running total. So the way that perpetual inventory would work, it's most commonly used for liquor, so I'll use the example of a liquor closet. So in our liquor closet, we keep all of our bottles of spirits, all of our wines that are at room temperature. We keep all of that product in a locked closet because it's not only is it a sizable dollars worth of inventory, but it's also one of those things that can seem to walk away sometimes if we don't keep it monitored. If we don't keep our liquor closet locked, then we're very applicable to have some theft of that product. So we do a perpetual inventory. And so basically what happens is Monday morning, when we're doing our physical inventory, we count everything. And so we have a little log sheet that we hang in the liquor closet. And so on Monday, it'll have the number of each bottle that we have in that closet. So you go through your Jack Daniels, we have 4, your Crown Royal, we have 6, and so on Monday morning you'll have your physical inventory done, and we'll record those on Monday of the perpetual inventory sheet. So later on Monday, when your bartender runs out of a product and they go in the closet and they pull 1 bottle of Crown, they're going to mark on that sheet that they took 1 bottle. So then at the end of the day, you'll subtract all of those, and so Crown, we had 6, I took 1 away, so now I have 5. We don't necessarily go back through and count, but you can at any point spot check and just go pick one of the things on your list. So we continually do that all throughout the week, and then when when Monday morning rolls around again and we go in that liquor closet and we count, those ending numbers for the week should be exactly what we count for our physical inventory. So we kind of keep a running total. Anytime we take something out of there, we mark it that we took 1 away. When we get an order in and we put some products in, we mark that we got 2 bottles of this in, and so it just kind of keeps a running total of what's in the closet. So at any point as a manager, you can go and spot check and say, pick 5 different ones off the list and just make sure that you have those products in the inventory. But for the most part, what we're going to be dealing with is physical inventory. Perpetual inventory is great, and you'll want to do that most commonly for your liquor products. If you have some high-end steaks or something like that, then that is something that you could have a perpetual inventory of also. But what we're going to deal with mostly from here out is a physical inventory. So when we think about our inventory, we have tons of different products that we purchase for our restaurants. I mean, we have all of our menu items. Of course, we have to have everything that we have on our menu. Plus, we need our seasonings, our spices. We need paper products. We need condiments. So there's a lot of stuff that we purchase. And one theory, I suppose, of inventory control is to divide your inventory into 3 different categories. Now, there's no like distinct line that says that these products here are category A, these are B, and these are C. But the way that we divide it, and I'm not gonna, not gonna harp on this too much and really not ask you a ton of questions about it, but it's essentially just thinking of your products as A, B, or C. Category A, those are those ones that are most expensive. So, it's like the top 20% of the stuff that you purchase, but they hold like 70 to 80% of your inventory value. So that's going to be things like your proteins, so your steaks, your beef tenderloins, your beef ribs, your ahi tuna. All of those are going to be some of your high dollar items. So those, our liquor is also going to be like a category A. Any of our top shelf liquor. Some of our well stuff could almost be in category B, but these things, they're expensive, and so we don't want any of them to for one, we don't want to waste product, but we also don't want them to be stolen from us. Unfortunately, in the restaurant industry, we have to keep some tight controls, because if not, our workers may sometimes feel the need to take some product home with them. So those category A ones, those are the ones that we're really going to monitor. They need to, tight controls. So we want to make sure that that stuff's not walking out the door. I mean, we don't want our employees to steal anything, but I'd a lot rather if my employees, had the chance to steal something, I'd rather them steal a canister of salt for me than a beef tenderloin, because that canister of salt really costs me nothing compared to what a beef tenderloin would cost me. So category A would be the one that you might see, and potentially should have some sort of perpetual inventory type of system to go with it. Category B, they're kind of our next one. They're the middle of our rows, or next 30% of items or whatever. So that's going to be like your produce, and if you have high-end type thing, truffles or some exotic wild mushrooms, those are going to be in category A. But our standard, our onions, our carrots, that kind of stuff is going to be category B. And then category C is going to be things like, salt and pepper and to-go silverware and that kind of thing. That it's not super high dollar, but we still, we're still going to monitor any of our products. But category A is the one that we keep the tightest control over. All right, so when we're doing a physical inventory, first thing we want to make sure that we have an accurate inventory count sheet. So I say accurate. It should have every product that we stock on the sheet. Sometimes it doesn't, and that's where we get to counting in a logical order. But it needs to be very accurate. It should have the case number, or the product number. It should have the case size. So we're going to do an example of an inventory thing in the next video, but we want it to be an accurate sheet. It should have the right product number. It should have the right case size. Should have the right, or the most current case price. And so it needs to be accurate. To actually perform the inventory, we want to make sure that we're doing it in a logical order. The one thing that we don't want to do is just grab our list and start going down our list, finding the product that's on the list and marking on there. We want to start in one corner of dry storage, work our way across the top shelf, down to the next shelf, down to the next shelf, down to the next shelf, move across and back. Same way in the cooler, we want to start in one end of the cooler, work our way to the other end of the cooler. You could do the whole top shelf all the way across, come back on the next shelf, or you could do the whole first set of shelving and then the second set of shelving. But we want to make sure that we're doing it in a logical order, and we're going to jump around on the inventory count sheet, but there's a potential that we might have product in there that's not on our sheet. So as much as we try to get an accurate inventory count sheet, there may be some products that are left off, but we don't want to forget about those, because they're, it's dollars that we have invested in product that we want to make sure makes it on our list. So we start in one area, and we count everything in a logical order, so we make sure that we hit every product that we have in storage. Pay attention to the details. So make sure that you are double checking the case size against the case size of the case that you are actually checking, because the way that we do inventory is what do I got here? Little example. Okay, so I have this spice. So this is unopened. So if I just bought these by themselves, I'd say that this is 1. If this was half full, I would say that it was a 0.5. So pretend like this Mountain Dew bottle is actually a liquor bottle. I would look at this bottle and I would say that I have about 0.2. So if this was if my count sheet said 20-ounce Mountain Dew, I would say 0.2 for this. And so we're kind of looking at, we'll be looking at things in percentages. So I would look at this, pretending this was a case of food, and I would say that I have 20% of this case left. So it's a little bit of an estimation of sorts, but if you have the same people doing inventory constantly, or they're trained the same, they can spot that. So if we look at a case of onions, the best way to do it would be to actually weigh the case. That's not always the most practical, and so we look at that case, we see that we have a third of a case, so we say 0.3. Or, if we have 4 other cases plus that one, we would have 4.3 cases. So we're estimating part of it, but one of the things to do is when we're making that estimation, we want to make sure that the case size that we're estimating matches what's on our inventory count sheet. So I don't want to say that I have 0.5 cases of onions when the case that I'm actually looking at is a 10-pound, where on my inventory count sheet it's 20 pounds, because then we have a discrepancy. So we want to make sure that we're double checking and pay attention to those little details as we go through and count. Inventory is not it's not a difficult process by any means. If you can count to, I wouldn't think you'd have to count to more than 20, but if you can count, elementary grade school or whatever, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then estimate a percentage of a box, then you can do inventory. And just make sure that you do it in a logical order. So we follow a logical order to make sure that we get every product, and pay attention to those little details. Make sure that, if our sheet says we're looking for a 20-pound case, then the case that we're actually looking at is 20 pounds. With our liquor orders, if our inventory sheet says a 1.75 liter bottle, we want to make sure that what we're actually inventorying is a 1.5 or 1.75 liter, and it's not a 1 liter or whatever. All right, so once we've actually inventoried everything and we've gone through and we've written all our numbers down, we can, you could do it by hand, multiply it out. Generally, you're going to plug it into a spreadsheet form of, it may not look like an Excel sheet. It may, depending on the company that you work for, it's or the company that you're running, your inventory sheet's going to look a little bit different. But essentially what you do is you put in the amount of the item that you have on hand, multiply it times the value, whatever the price of it is, and that's going to give you your inventory value. You total it all up for all of them, and that's going to tell you what your total inventory value is. We're going to get into inventory turnover a little bit later, and the value of our inventory can tell us a couple of things. For one, it tells us how much of our dollars we have tied up in inventory. We start looking at inventory turnover to see how quickly we're going through our inventory, because we don't really want to have all of our cash tied up in product just sitting on the shelves. We go through, we do inventory, we count all the products, we multiply it times how much each one of those products is worth, and we're going to do an example of this in the next video. But we'll add all that up, and it'll give us our total inventory value, so we know how many dollars we have tied up in inventory. Alright, so like I said, in a perfect world, we could just say that we sold 100 burgers, and each burger costs us $1 to make, so we have $100 in food expenditures for this week or whatever. But unfortunately, some things happen, some waste, some ordering errors and things like that, and so we actually use our inventory and our inventory values to be able to calculate what our food costs, food expenditures were for a period of time. So basically what we do is we start with our beginning inventory for the period. So on the first day, of summer school, June 6th, we'll say that somebody did inventory of your restaurant. So last Monday, June 6th, somebody did inventory, and they figured out the beginning inventory for the period was $5,000. So over the last week, we ordered $2,000 of food. Then on Monday, June 13th, we did our weekly inventory again, and we found out that our inventory was $4,500. And so we've got a beginning inventory, we've got an ending inventory. Essentially, our ending inventory becomes the beginning for the next period. So if we do inventory every Monday, essentially we have a beginning, which was the ending of the previous period. So the inventory on June 6th would be the ending inventory of the week before that, from May 30th or whatever. And then the inventory on June 13th would be the ending inventory of the June 6th to June 13 period, and the beginning of the 13th through the 20th. But so what we do is we start with what we had in the beginning, we add in our purchases, we subtract out the ending. And I'm sure I just made that way more complicated than it needed to be. So it's real easy. If I start out the week just think about your refrigerator at home. If I did inventory on Monday morning and found out that in my home I have $150 worth of groceries. So throughout the week I bought $50 more. So I started with $150. Throughout the week I bought $50 more worth. And then at the end of the week I had $100 of it left over. So I started with $150. I bought $50 more, so that's $200, and I had $100 left over at the end. So that means during that week I consumed, or the cost of the food that was used up was $100. So we start with what we had in the beginning, we add in our purchases, and we subtract out what's left over, and that's going to tell us how much food we went through. So there's some other things that you will need to consider. We have employee meals, so generally your employees don't buy their food at full price. If we have separate food for employee meals, then that's something else that we'll have to consider. But essentially what we're looking at is the cost of food consumed, because that's what's going to go on our profit and loss sheet. Sometimes we might just look at cost of food sold when we're comparing it to food sales to get an accurate food cost percentage. Really for the purposes of this class, I'm going to leave out employee meals and transfer outs and stuff. But just know that that's one of the things that you may potentially have to consider, and different companies will handle those differently. So they'll have policies set for figuring out that. So the main thing is we start with our beginning inventory, we add in our purchases, and then we subtract out what's left over, and that tells us how much food we went through for that period. Food cost percentage is one of the very important assessment tools. Food cost percentage, beverage cost percentage, labor cost percentage. Those are the three major assessment tools that we'll look at, and also profit percentages, probably the most important. But so we'll look at our food cost percentage. Every operation is going to have a target. They're going to have a target food cost percentage, a target labor cost, a target beverage cost percentage, and depending on who you work for, that part of your bonus may be dependent on you meeting those food cost percentage goals and those revenue goals and things. But food cost percentage is very simple. We take the cost of the food sold, and essentially that's what we're figuring out here. We start with the beginning, we add our purchases, we subtract out what's left over. So we take the cost of the food sold divided by food sales. So a little example, we started our period with $12,500 in inventory. We purchased $8,500, and our next inventory, our inventory value was $9,000, and for that period we sold $48,000. So if we look at this example, first off we have to figure out our cost of the food that we went through. So our food cost, our beginning inventory, we started with this. We add in what we bought, and then we subtract out what's left over. So we started out with $12,500 worth of food. Through that week, we bought $8,500 worth. And then when we did inventory the next week, we had $9,000 still in inventory. So we take our $12,500 plus the $8,500 that we bought in, subtract out what's left over, and that tells us that our food cost for this week was $12,000. To figure out our food cost percentage, we take that cost of food sold, 12,000, and divide it by our food sales of 48,000. So it tells us that we had a 25% food cost percentage for this period. So you'll want to look at that weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and quarterly, annually. You're going to continually monitor your food cost percentage. If it fluctuates, then you want to figure out why. So if we do 25% one week and 35% the next week, well, we better start looking and figuring out what happens. Do we waste products? We go and we look at our inventory. We constantly want to compare our inventory numbers with what our POS numbers say. So if we, I guess we'll go to this next one. We do beverage costs the same way. Cost of beverage sold divided by beverage sales. But once we're doing inventory, we get all our numbers. We want to go back and compare those. We may not compare every single one, but we want to go back and we want to scan the list and compare, what our inventory is and what the POS system says our inventory should be. So if we started out with 50 bottles of Budweiser, and we sold, our POS system says we sold 12, but we count, and we only have 35 left over, well, then we're missing 3 bottles of Budweiser. And so we need to go figure out, how that could have happened. Are we over on another one where somebody rang in Bud Light instead of Budweiser, and so the bartender went ahead and gave him a Budweiser, but just left it as a Bud Light on the tab? And so, we want to use inventory for multiple purposes, and that's another one of them, is to make sure that the products that we have on hand match what our POS records say that we should have on hand. And as we get into our third major block of the semester, when we talk about sort of the back office management, that's when we'll really talk about some of those things. So next up, I'm going to give you an inventory example. So we'll work through a little inventory value and ordering type of a problem.